All right, everyone. Hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is TJ Berry. I am a Senior Director for Solution Architecture here at 3Cloud. And I will be working with Rich Hackenberg today on a presentation around Secure Research and Microsoft Azure and how to help organizations move forward from there. So with that being said, I am going to kick off this webinar and presentation and introduce Rich Hackenberg. Rich, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks TJ, and welcome everybody. As TJ mentioned, my name is Rich Hackenberg. I am an Enterprise Sales Director with 3Cloud. I specialize in higher education, academic, medical, and healthcare. So I focus on our strategic accounts in that area. Happy to be on the call today.
Great, thanks Rich. And today, everybody, we're going to go over an agenda real quick here, just what we're going to be covering today. Just a little bit about 3Cloud, who we are. Rich will be covering that. And then I'll take it from there, give kind of a brief overview of the Microsoft Azure platform and provider as a whole, just so everybody has a quick understanding of why Microsoft Azure for Research and the security built around it. Then I'll go into the research technologies and our approach, and then how we can work together on next steps. So with that said, I will move forward in the slide deck and have Rich go over these.
Sure, thanks. So just a quick overview on who 3Cloud is. We are a company that's been focused solely on Microsoft's cloud technology. It's a combination of three companies. 3Cloud, who is a leading Azure partner for Microsoft, Applied Cloud Systems, who is also a leading cloud partner for Microsoft, and Pragmatic Works Consulting, another lead partner for Microsoft. The three of us combined now create the largest Microsoft-only cloud partner in the country. And we have 6 national practice areas that cover really the entire gamut of the cloud journey for a customer. So from the original and initial sort of assessment to determine what workloads make sense to move to Microsoft Cloud and how to get them there, to modernizing applications and solutions in the cloud, to all the way to providing a full managed service offering. So we're a full stop provider of Microsoft cloud-based technologies. We only focus on Microsoft, not the others. And we really have built deep practice areas around the entire cloud lifecycle from Microsoft. So I mentioned, so we also, because of the three companies coming together, Applied Cloud Systems, one of the three companies, spent a lot of time over the last 2 years in particular working in higher education, academic, medical. We worked with over 100 different academic institutions across the entire sort of cloud portfolio, from initial governance to migrations to the Secure Research Enclave that we're going to talk about today. A number of our employees came from academic medicine or higher education and research themselves, which is why we have an affinity for creating these secure solutions around research. We also, again, work with, I think, over 100 mentioned universities all across the country from in all areas, and really have an affinity for providing these capabilities to our customers. We work very closely with Microsoft to frame this solution architecture and that TJ will talk about in sort of a couple of different approaches based on the Azure services that our customers are interested in. So from a very simple infrastructure to a very complex, robust infrastructure, including the data platform, high performance computing, and the like. So with that, I'll let TJ get into what the Secure Research Enclaves are in more detail, which is why you're all here. So with that, TJ, I'll turn that over to you, back over to you.
I appreciate that, Rich. And I just want to point out here the methods and what we've talked about here, and what we're going to talk about here today. We actually have worked many years on doing this in a very agile approach. And our speed of execution can show for that, as we can help organizations get to where they need to be to enable their researchers going forward. With that said, I am going to just give a brief overview of the Microsoft Azure experience in general. I want to make sure that everybody kind of understands the idea behind Microsoft Azure and why building out secure research is an okay thing in Microsoft Azure, as opposed to potentially putting it either on-prem or another provider. And just want to make sure that everybody is aware of the services that are available and how large of a footprint Microsoft Azure really has. Microsoft Azure has 60 regions worldwide. That is more than AWS and Google combined. The significance of that from a research perspective, as we work with organizations all over North America, is that the fact that a lot of these research projects that we have helped organizations with definitely span internationally. And if there are concerns around where data must reside, there are a lot of different options for us in that respect. To make sure that we meet the compliancy and regulations that are needed from a security perspective for the inter-organizational research, as well as the governing institutions of the countries that they're working in. So just want to call that out here. And then I want to make sure that everybody kind of understands that as most of everybody knows, the cloud is not some nebulous computing platform. They are physical. They are physical, actual buildings that have physical hardware inside of them, right? And Microsoft, in all regions, secures in a very identical way. So hardware, software processes, right? From perimeter security, fire detection and suppression, multi-factor authentication, even for physical access to buildings, and then extensive monitoring throughout the board. The actual practices that Microsoft uses inside these environments, red team, blue teaming, attack simulations, to operational excellence across the board, to make sure that the organizations that are inside the Microsoft Azure platform are met with a security standard that meets and exceeds a lot of what they do themselves. The one thing I will want to point out here is that, I get some questions sometimes around the actual perimeter security to some of these buildings. Microsoft has a division, and I like to point this out, that actually is dedicated to building fences around this. And I know that sounds funny. Why do you care, right? So the fences are actually designed to stop a Ford F-350 driving 70 miles an hour and bounce off the fence with doing very minimal damage to the actual fence itself. And then, of course, internally, industrial shredders are inside each one of these data centers for the disks that reach end of life and result in BB-sized pieces of metal being shredded into, and that's part of the actual NIST requirements. So I would just want to point that out as well, that it's not just NIST requirements from a security perspective on software definition, but actually at the physical layer as well. And of course, encryption of data at rest and in transit at all times while inside the Azure Data Center. So just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. And of course, Azure has 90+ certification. It's the deepest, most comprehensive compliance coverage in the industry, whether we're talking about internally to the United States government, industry specific, or across the globe. Microsoft continually ensures your compliance with those standards and taking advantage of all those certifications. Your organization's compliance with offerings that provide built-in controls, configuration management tools, and implementation and guidance around these resources. And of course, you can always use third-party auditing tools to verify your own assets and adhere to your strict security controls that your organization might have. So the next thing that I kind of want to talk about here from a security perspective is that Azure actually, Microsoft invests $1 billion a year and employs more than 3,500 experts around the world to actually audit and protect your resources inside of Microsoft Azure. From physical infrastructure to biosecurity to DDoS attack protection, these built-in tools help secure these environments and help you feel more secure in the Microsoft ecosystem. On top of that, partners like 3Cloud, we invest heavily into our employees to make sure that they have their CISP certifications, that we are background checked, and we can work in the most secure environments that Microsoft and your sovereign gov clouds have to offer. And of course, it doesn't matter what tool sets you're used to. This isn't the old Microsoft way of doing things. Everything doesn't have to be .NET and live in that environment. Microsoft is open source, from Puppet to Docker to Node.js to Cloudera. Whatever it is that your team needs to run is absolutely available. Different flavors of Linux. Whatever database that you need to run up there is absolutely doable inside of the Microsoft Azure. And just one more thing here, Azure provides, of course, the best class performance around compute performance to hybrid networking, are the fastest and largest in scale of the public cloud providers that are out there. Microsoft and 3Cloud heavily contribute back to the research community from various Git repos that we work through. It's at our core to stay open source. So the areas of research that we work in, both with Microsoft and 3Cloud, listed out here, from anything from security and privacy to social sciences. We work in those realms and are happy to help with any of those breakthroughs or research projects that you may have on your plate. That is the last slide that I'm going to go into here as far as the background around Azure. I don't want to take up a ton of time to go through that. And if you have any questions regarding any of these slides, feel free to hit up at the end. We'll have a Q&A section at the end here if you have any questions. Really trying to get into the meat of why we're here today, right? And that's enabling research, right? The issues that we have here on a day-to-day basis is access to new technologies, organizational security issues, whether that's from shadow IT to financial implications that happen from using unlicensed or duplicative software, to researchers not having the ability to have a secure, governed way of actually sharing or doing collaborative research amongst one another, right? And we hear this, whether we're talking about genomic type of workloads, or we're talking about consortiums working on specific pain modules, or doing autonomous driving exercises across the country, and different organizations, from commercial to academic to healthcare to specific FinServ cases inside of some of the most robust organizations that work in those spaces at a higher education level, right? Algorithms that they come up with, they can't actually work outside of what they do, and if they are, they're doing it in a way that may not be approved, or is probably not the best, most secure way of doing that, right? And ultimately, they have the ability to go out and buy their own equipment, but again, those become very inadequate very quickly. And now in today's pandemic episode that we're having, we see more and more delays on getting access to hardware because the suppliers around the world have delays in actual manufacturing. So the need for innovation quickly and getting to those results more quickly is some of the things that we're hearing to help enable, right? That said, We have worked with organizations across the country, including Microsoft, as well as lots of higher education and academic meds in the United States and Canada, to help derive a secure research enclave that basically simplifies managing that data set and securing your environment and allowing your research access to those state-of-the-art tools, the powerful platforms that are available to them, and able to get to a project result faster, which of course, you know, as we all know in the research community, the faster I can get my result, the faster I can get to the next stage, where I can either get more funding or get more data or get to a point where I'm doing more advanced research on helping drive either precision finance or you know, personalized medicine. There's all sorts of different ways of driving faster data. And the data associated with these research informations are valuable assets to not just the researchers and educators across the board. It's valuable to all of us, right? And we want to make sure that it stays in the right hands, and make sure that it's able to be collaborated in a fashion that that everybody can work in together. As a result, we have worked with these organizations to come up with what we call the Secure Research Enclave, and we have what we like to call our research enclaves in 3 different sizes, right? The Secure Research Enclave Small is an access management service that gives access to data science resources inside of a secure research subscription that has a particular subscription taxonomy and management groups associated with it, with stringent policy and compliance controls from NIST 800-171 to DoD Level 4. We can customize these to make sure that we meet the compliance and regulatory concerns that your organization might have. And give access to anything from your R Studios to SAS to Jupyter Notebooks. And this small environment is to basically give those data scientists the ability to get enough compute power and access to their file services to get them to a point where they can get to their results faster in a more secure manner. We move forward into the Secure Research Enclave medium size. Once we get to the medium size, it becomes a little bit more complex. And as we get those more complex is where we start to add the data services into it, whether we're talking about SQL databases, and you know, I have Azure SQL listed here, or MySQL, or PostgreSQL. The data services behind the scenes are what we're going to start to enable, as well as a way to manage and integrate those data services, whether we're talking about Spark clusters on Databricks or using Data Factory to manipulate, extract, and transform that data from point A to point B. Aggregate that data to allow the data scientists to do more faster. You know, some organizations have the need for this, some don't. We have this our medium size. These are a little bit more complex, especially when it comes to encrypting and making sure we're integrating with the appropriate services that each organization has here. So the complexity gets a little bit more intricate as we start to spin out the data services that are available out in the Microsoft Azure platform, but again, built on that same access management service protocol in a series of hosts with authenticated users across the board. And then, of course, we get into our large research enclave. And here we're just building on top of the services each separate time on top of the data services that we've already worked with here. We enable Data Lake or Delta Lake and the Azure Data Share. We will help enable and secure the Azure Cycle Cloud instance, which if you have any questions around that, If there's anybody here from a research that uses HPC, feel free to hit me up with any type of questions or even an email after the presentation to let you know about anything around Cycle Cloud or Azure Batch. Again, whatever your scheduler is, or even if you want to go to a hybrid type of approach where you can burst into a secure research environment from your on-prem, this is the type of research environment that we're talking about here. This enclave also allows and enables machine learning workbenches, as well as, of course, building on top of the Azure Databricks platform as a whole. So these are our separate sizes of what you're going to be getting access to. Each separate piece adds a little bit more complexity from cognitive services all the way down to your data science VMs. So that is our general highlight of just a little bit of a 10,000-foot view of how it all works internally. And then we have a bolt-on that is, as we call it, Research as a Service portal. It's fully customizable for your organizational processes. And kind of the beauty with this is that, you know, we basically can bolt this onto the Research Enclave and not have the researchers actually have any direct access into the Microsoft Azure portal and need to know how to actually deploy any of it. If they just want, you know, storage or compute or container or a cluster for their containers or an analytics environment spun up, the self-service portal will allow them to invite other users into their project, give them access to their particular resources that they want to have access to, all while being deployed inside of an enclave and managed in that same way with set budgetary controls and consumption reports being sent back. It's a really nice way to give researchers access without having to know all the ins and outs of everything behind the scenes in the Azure platform. So this is kind of a bolt-on to the actual research enclaves themselves. If you have any questions regarding this, feel free to again hit me up after the webinar or during the QA session here. Just give a kind of a breakdown of the actual options and what is included in each of the enclaves. As you can see, we kind of build across the board here. Across the board, each one of them, as you can see at the bottom, your governance, your compliance, and your automation across the board is included in each one of these. It's basically building onto the resources and solidifying and securing those types of resources that you want to have access to based on the size of the enclave that you choose and the needs of the organization. So really just want to kind of give that view so you can really see the breakdown of what you get and basically the estimated timelines of how long it really takes us to do these engagements to solidify and get your organization running inside of Microsoft Azure fairly quickly. We have heard from a lot of the organizations that there are a need for managed services built around the Secure Research Enclave. Sometimes that is something that traditionally academic, medical, and higher education may not be able to take on based on cuts from their IT staff or just the expertise level isn't there yet. So we do offer managed services around the Secure Research Enclaves, the cost of which varies from based on the Azure consumption for the Secure Research Enclave subscription, the VMs and the various services that are going to be deployed inside of there. So if this is something your organization is going to want to look into, I definitely want you to not be afraid that, hey, I'm not going to be able to support this. We can help you. We've worked through these. We can customize and see where it is that your organization may need some assistance from a managed service perspective. Of course, we are a Azure expert MSP, so we do have that gold certification in that realm. So just wanted to call that out there. And of course, how do we go to next steps, right? Next steps, we'll work together, have a couple of sessions where we kind of validate your approach and timeline of what you're looking to do. Feel free to hit myself up or send an email to sales@3cloudsolutions.com, and we can get some discovery sessions kind of working together to see and validate the approach that you'd like to take. After that, we basically collaborate together, 3Cloud Microsoft, and develop a statement of work for you. And then, of course, we discuss the logistics and scheduling once we move to that point. With that, I am going to move into the question and answer phase of this discussion in this webinar. Does anybody have any questions? Let me take a look here. Looks like I got a question. Yep. So looks like, will these slides be available? Yep. We will provide these slides out to everyone that's attended today, and send that deck to you electronically. We'll take care of that after this. Any other questions? Right.
I don't really see any more questions. We can give a few minutes here, I guess, to see if any more questions come in, but I don't really see any.
All right. And folks, if there's something in particular you want to dive down into, I definitely know the technical feasibility of a lot of this. So my background into and of itself is I come from an academic medical background where I helped researchers from my previous life enable their research in the Microsoft Cloud. So if you have any technical questions, feel free to put those out there as well. I'm perfectly able to answer those. All right. Well, with that said, it doesn't look, oh, let's see here. It says, you mentioned supporting bursting from on-premise. How does that work? Sure. So Paul from HBS. So basically how that works is that depending on the scheduler that you're using, we actually partition the HPC cluster so it knows about available cluster nodes that are inside of Microsoft Azure. And then we actually we segment that off and basically say, as we need to move forward, depending on what management tool that you're using, whether that is CycleCloud itself or you're using something other than CycleCloud, we basically say start off with these sets of nodes, and then as needed, we will burst up into the cloud. We would set up either a high-speed VPN, depending on the complexity and the amount of data that needs to be sent across the line, or we can talk about Microsoft Azure Express Route, either across a public POP or across I2, which are both available. As far as Azure, maybe a demo to the Azure portal itself, I'd be happy to do a demo of the portal for you. Feel free. I don't think that we'll have enough time to go through all of a demo of that. But if you're interested in a demo of the research portal as a service, feel free to reach out to sales@3cloudsolutions.com, and we will get that set up for you. I will call out here as well is that if one of the pieces of that research portal needs to integrate with ServiceNow, we do have those capabilities as well, as we have a proprietary ServiceNow connector to help with that connection. So if that is something that of concern there as well, we can absolutely do that, since if you want to keep track of those types of requests through that system. But it is not a requirement to have ServiceNow to run the Research as a Service portal. Any further questions? Let's see here. See a question about IBM DataPack 3.5. I'm assuming that you meant to type Redshift. Yes, I have experience writing Redshift. I have not used DataPack 3.5 yet, but I have run Redshift in Microsoft Azure in a previous life. So if you have any specific questions around that, I can help answer those. And Crystal, are people able to come off mute and ask questions verbally, or do they have to type them? I'm not sure how the presentation's set up.
They have to type them, because
Okay.
It's just with this Teams, it's a little bit harder to
Unmute.
have everybody come off mute.
All good, no issues, just making sure.
It doesn't look like there's any more questions so far. I don't know if anybody's currently typing, but
We'll give a minute or two.
okay.
And for it came across as anonymous to me, whoever asked the question about Redshift with Microsoft Azure. You know, let me know if you have any questions as far as that's concerned. You know, and whether or not it makes sense to maybe compare Redshift versus Synapse in that department as well. All right. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. Again, I will thank you for your time today. Again, we are 3Cloud Solutions, a Microsoft Gold Certified Partner, specifically around higher education and academic medicine is where my team really works in. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to sales@3cloudsolutions.com, and we'll get something set up to walk through.
All right. Thank you, TJ, so much for hosting. And as usual, guys, thank you so much for joining. We greatly appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to TJ or myself. We'll be more than happy to help. Like TJ was saying, we will also have the recording sent to you guys, and it will also be available on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to check that out as well. I hope you guys have a good rest of your Wednesday. And again, TJ, thank you for hosting, and thank you guys for joining. Bye-bye.
Thanks.